Hello there everyone, this is Melissa Furness with you for another art demo. So, today I'm going to draw a portrait, also someone I know very well, my daughter Pip here. Hey, let's see what happens.
For this drawing, use a sheet of 18 by 24 inch drawing paper. You may choose to use graphite pencils in varying weights and your soluble graphite, or if you'd like, you can also decide to use colored pencil with your gouache. So you choose color or no color. And as you get started, be sure that you're going to be drawing large and trying to fill that space as well as you can as you produce this portrait. Okay, so we're ready to go. The first thing you want to do is just get a rough outline of the shape of the face. So as you know, some people have different shapes according to their jawline. Some people have a little bit more square or oval or maybe heart-shaped. Hers looks a little bit more oval, so I've got an oval drawing on my paper. The next thing I do is take a look at how, the face has two sides to it. It's mirrored. One side and the other side pretty much reflect each other. So that's going to be the first line that I draw. See, straight down the middle of the face. And so that would be the second step, which I've got down here on my paper. The next step is to start to measure out where the features are located on that particular person's head. So in general, you'll find that if you want to find basically how, the eyes come across the entire head and draw that line. So the way to do that is I use my pencil tool as a nice way to measure. I'll put the top of the pencil at the top of the head there. And that includes, going all the way up to where you imagine the actual skull ending. And then I put my thumb at the bottom of the chin. And then what I do is I look for where that measurement of the eyes are. And so you can see it's basically halfway down the full measurement of the head. That's something that I find that students make mistakes with quite often. That they tend to want to make the forehead much smaller than it is. And now we have the birds chirping. It's very exciting here. Pippa might be just a princess. So I've got the line of the eyes, halfway down there. So now I want to find that measurement of where the bottom of the nose is there. This is actually kind of fun. I'm kind of just drawing on my daughter's face here in the camera. It's kind of interesting, but it shows you really clearly, how I do these measurements. So if I measure down from the eye line to the bottom of the chin, you'll see that the nose, again, hits halfway in between that space. And then from there, take a careful look of where the lips sit. So some people have a smaller space there, some people have a larger space. It helps if the person isn't making faces while you're trying to make your drawing as well. So you have to do your best not to tell jokes and don't make them laugh, because that gets to be a problem. Oops.
I made myself laugh.
Then next, after that, you want to find some of the horizontal measurements of the face. So we've got the eye line, we've got the bottom of the nose, we have where the mouth sits. And then you want to find the actual sort of measurement of the eyes from one end to the other. So you can see there's one of hers, and I don't know, it's basically, the width of the tip of that pencil, right? So if each one of those eyes is that width, you could probably also fit another one of those eyes in between the eyes. And then it's kind of like half of an eye out to the edge. So then I can make little tiny marks on my paper that define those measurements. So I'm using the lighter pencil because then I can kind of erase it later, or, what I do is I actually like having that bit of energy behind my drawing. But, just making a little mark really helps to save your time and energy on, making sure you get it right the first time rather than making mistakes as you go. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is take a look at, where the end of the nostrils are there. Comes another dog. Woohoo! So either side, so you have that whole width of the nose, right? So if you look and draw a line from the corner of the inner part of the one eye straight down, you can see that the nostril is pretty close in alignment to that, maybe slightly in. So I want to draw a line down to define that on each side where the end of the nostril would be. The other thing that you can do then too is to take a look at the mouth. So some people have smaller mouths, some of them have wider mouths. So you measure from the corner of the mouth up to the eye. So where does it hit on that person's eye? Perhaps, you know, a little bit in from center or out from center, it just depends. But make sure that you focus carefully on who you're drawing and that person's particular measurements, because that's going to be what makes them seem to be exactly who they are when you're creating your drawing. And so that's going to be how we'll start our piece. And so now I'll proceed, now that you can see how I've produced those measurements. So now you can see this is what I've got going on in my drawing. My daughter's sitting in front of me, and now I'm going to start to map out the features a little bit more distinctly. When drawing in the features of the portrait, or when drawing in general, I begin with a lighter colored pencil or a lighter graphite pencil if you prefer, which would be something like an HB or a 2H pencil. The H refers to the hardness of the pencil and will create a lighter line for you. I then utilize the measurements that we just mapped out to define the basic shapes and forms of the face. I do not add smaller details until later. So I should not see things like eyelashes or shading at this point in the drawing. I find that students tend to want to finish items piece by piece, and this is not the way to go. It is important to work in layers, going across the entire face first with mapping out proportion and scale, then basic shapes and forms, and only adding the details and value later as one finishes off the piece, as you will see me do here. The hair is another issue. You must fight the urge to quickly scribble in a mass of lines, assuming that it's just a bunch of stuff. Any lines that you make on the portrait should be specific and particular to that individual. If there are too many hairs for you to make sense of and you get frustrated, remember that you aren't required to draw every single individual hair, nor should you. However, if you want to draw them all, then have at it. But make sure that you are looking at your subject and you are being specific and paying attention to every strand as you would when drawing a person's eyes. All elements of a person's head come together to make them the person that they are. So you see here, I have now switched to a mid-color pencil to help me define edges a bit more. If you're working with a graphite pencil, this would be when you switch to a softer pencil like a B or a 2B. The B stands for pencil's blackness, and at this point I'm still not concerned with too many tiny details, just the specifics of the most important elements that are there. I slow down at this point and draw with confidence in knowing that I have mapped out the face correctly in my previous stage. So if you make mistakes or you need to make corrections, these should all be done during that first layer with the lightest pencil so that the corrections can be made easily. So here you see me mapping out a few more details than before, but most definitely not full detail. I believe that drawing is much like painting and that one should develop the work in layers, and so you will see me also develop my paintings in a similar way. It is easy to think of drawing as just a one-off thing and then you're done, but you'll find that if you try this method that your drawings have much more form, depth, and richness to them in the end. This is not like paint or draw by numbers where you draw an outline and fill it in. This is a process that builds over time, and you see an image appear from an abstract sketchiness and build into greater and greater detail until you finish. With this drawing, I am using water-soluble pencils. I really enjoy using these in particular. I like these Derwent Inktense pencils, which give me an intense color. Many so-called cheap watercolor pencils have very pale pastelist kind of looking color, which I don't really like that much. And so you see the blues come out here when I add water with a brush to this piece. This also allows me to quickly get some value developed across the entire face. With painting, you can much more quickly fill out a space. So with these water-soluble pencils, I found a way to speed up the process for myself. And you can also purchase water-soluble graphite pencils if you're working in graphite. I love those as well. So at this point, you notice that I put down the paintbrush. I then switched to my final darkest indigo pencil. And if I were working with graphite, I would switch to my blackest pencil, a 9B, or perhaps an ebony pencil, which I like quite a lot. This is where I define the smallest details. It is also important to develop the drawing as a whole, like I said, and to treat all of these features of the face as equal. The eyes are not more important than the nose or the mouth in depicting the individuality of a person, or even hairstyle, for instance. So here in the end, you see my final drawing. So here you see some examples of some previous student work. What I'd like you to do with this piece is to somehow, add some embellishment, address the background so that it's not just empty space beyond the portrait. So think about what you can do creatively while still showing that you've developed the drawing in the way that I've shown you. So you could have some fun with color or add a pattern or something else to the image to complete it.